Chapter 8. Agriculture and Food Management. India is now faced with the problem of plenty, with supply outpacing demand. India has surpluses in most food categories which bring down food inflation, resulting in stalling a large channel of income transfer from food consumers, mostly rich, to food producers, mostly poor. In this chapter, Diamond Suit Introduction, Diamond Suit Kharif and Rabi, Diamond Suit Food Philosophy of India, Diamond Suit Land Reforms, Diamond Suit Green Revolution, Diamond Suit Cropping Patterns, Diamond Suit Animal Rearing, Diamond Suit Food Management, Diamond Suit Buffer Stock, Diamond Suit Storage, Diamond Suit Farm Subsidies, Diamond Suit Food Security, Diamond Suit PDS and Food Subsidy, Diamond Suit Agriculture Marketing, Diamond Suit Model Contract Farming Act, Diamond Suit Agri-Commodity Trading, Diamond Suit Upstream and Downstream Requirements, Diamond Suit Supply Chain Management, Diamond Suit Irrigation, Diamond Suit Farm Mechanization, Diamond Suit Seed Development, Diamond Suit Fertilizers, Diamond Suit Pesticide, Diamond Suit Agri-Credit, Diamond Suit Agriculture Extension Services, Diamond Suit PMFBY, Diamond Suit WTO and the Indian Agriculture Prospects and Challenges, Diamond Suit WTO and Agricultural Subsidies AMS, Diamond Suit National Food Security Act, Diamond Suit Food Processing, Diamond Suit Doubling Farm Income, Diamond Suit Cash Support to Farmers, Diamond Suit Women Farmers, Diamond Suit Climate Smart Agriculture, Diamond Suit Looking Ahead. Hollow right pointing triangle introduction. Agriculture remains the most important sector of the Indian economy, whether it be the pre-independence or the post-independence periods. This fact is emphatically proved by the large number of people who depend on it for their livelihood. Before starting any discussion on Indian agriculture, we must look into its special features. From the monetary point of view, the share of the agriculture sector in the economy remains at 16.5% of the GDP. In the fiscal 1950-51, agriculture accounted for 55.4% of the GDP. The share of agriculture has been falling in the country's gross income, while industrial and services sectors' shares have been on a rise constantly. But from the livelihood point of view, still 48.7% of the people of India depend on the agriculture sector. This makes it a more important sector than the industry and the services. For Nepal and Tanzania, the dependency for livelihood on agriculture is still higher at 93% and 81%, respectively. It means that around 49% of the population lives with only 16.5% of the total income of the Indian economy. This fact clearly substantiates the reason why the people who depend on agriculture are poor. In the developed economies such as the USA, France, Norway, the UK and Japan, agriculture contributes only 2% of their GDP, with only 2% of the people dependent on this sector for their livelihood. Agriculture is not only the biggest sector of the economy, but also the biggest private sector too. It is the only profession which still carries no burden of individual income tax. This is the biggest unorganized sector of the economy, accounting for more than 90% share in the total unorganized labor force, 93.4% of the total labor force of the economy, i.e., 40.0 crores is employed in the unorganized sector. India occupies a leading position in global agricultural trade, having a share of 2.15% in the world agricultural trade. The USA, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Nepal and Bangladesh as major export destinations. What is noteworthy is that since the economic reforms began, India has remained consistently a net exporter of agri-products. In 2018-19, value of exports being 2.7 lakh rupees crore against import of 1.37 lakh rupees crore. According to the export figures, agriculture is deeply related to industrial growth and the national income in India. 1% increase in the agricultural growth leads to 0.5% increase in industrial output growth and 0.7% increase in the national income of India. The industrial sector was selected as the prime moving force of the economy in the late 1940s. But due to market failure, the sector failed to lead the economy after independence. Without increasing the income of the people who depend on agriculture for their livelihood, the market was not going to support the industries. As a result, the Government of India announced agriculture as the prime moving force of the economy in 2002. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. With 1% increase in the share of agriculture in India's total exports, the money which flows into agriculture is calculated to be 8,500 crore rupees. acres, a total of 66.1% of the cropped area in the country still depends on the uncertainties of monsoon for their irrigational requirements. Meanwhile, attention is being given on enhancing water productivity and irrigation efficiency. Food grain production is estimated to reach a record level of 291.95 million tons, MT, in 2019-20. It was 285.21 MT in 2018-19. The country is headed for a record production of several crops such as rice, 117.5 MT, wheat, 106.2 MT, nutri-cereals, 45.24 MT in the year. Hollow right pointing triangle Kharif and Rabi. There are certain special terms used to understand the cropping seasons of India. The agricultural crop year in India is from July to June. The Indian cropping season is classified into two main seasons, I, Kharif and E, Rabi based on the monsoon. The Kharif cropping season is from July to October during the southwest summer monsoon, and the Rabi cropping season is from October to March, northeast, returning winter monsoon. The crops grown between March and June are summer crops, known as Jaiads. Pakistan and Bangladesh are two other countries that are using the term Kharif and Rabi to describe their cropping patterns. The terms Kharif and Rabi originate from Arabic language, where Kharif means autumn and Rabi means spring. The Kharif crops include rice, maize, sorghum, pearl millet, bajra, finger millet, ragi, cereals, arhar, pulses, soybean, groundnut, oilseeds, cotton, etc. The Rabi crops include wheat, barley, oats, cereals, chickpea per gram, pulses, linseed, mustard, oilseeds, etc. Hollow right pointing triangle food philosophy of India. Indian food philosophy is generally seen divided into three phases with their own objectives and challenges. The first phase, this phase continued for the first 3 decades after independence. The main aim and the struggle of this phase was producing as much food grains as required by the Indian population, i.e., achieving physical access to food. The idea of the Green Revolution at the end of this phase at least gave India the confidence of realizing the objective. At the end of the 1980s, India was a self-sufficient country with regard to food. The second phase, meanwhile, India was celebrating its success of the first phase. A new challenge confronted the country, achieving economic access to food. The situation went on worsening, and by early 2000 there was a paradoxical situation in the country when it was having more than 3 times buffer stocks of food grains in the central pool, but in several states people were dying due to lack. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of food, a complete mockery of the logic behind maintaining buffer stock, success of Green Revolution and the concept of India being a welfare state. The Supreme Court intervened after a PIL was filed by the People's Union for Civil Liberties, PUCL, and a national-level food for work program came up, to be merged with the National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. The courts took the governments on task if food grains rot either in godowns or destroyed in oceans to manage market price for the food grains, or if the center had to go for exporting wheat at very low price. In this process, India emerged as the 7th largest exporter of wheat, 2002. Basically, we were exporting the share of wheat which was not consumed by many Indians due to lack of economic reach to food. As the inputs of the Green Revolution were costlier, its output naturally were to be costlier. To fight the situation, there should have been a time-bound and target-oriented macroeconomic policy support, which could deliver comparative increase in the purchasing capacity of the masses to make food affordable for them. India badly failed in it. The crisis was managed by throwing higher and higher subsidies, ultimately affecting government expenditure on the infrastructural shortcomings in the agriculture sector. Even after providing higher food subsidies, some people failed to purchase food and they were left with no option but to die of hunger. India is still in this phase and trying to solve the crisis through twin approach, firstly, by creating maximum number of gainful employment, and secondly, by cutting cost of food grains, via the second Green Revolution based on biotechnology. It must be kept in mind that the food self-sufficiency happiness was a temporary thing for India. By the mid-1990s, India realized that its food grain production was lagging behind its population increase. It means India is still fighting to achieve physical reach to the required level of food. The third phase, by the end of the 1980s, world experts started questioning the very way world was carrying on with different modes of production. Agricultural activity was one among them, which had become hugely based on industries, chemical fertilizer, pesticide, tractors, etc. All developed economies had declared their agriculture to be an industry. It was time to look back and introspect. By the early 1990s, several countries started going for ecologically friendly methods and techniques of industrial, agricultural and services sectors development. The much-hyped Green Revolution was declared ecologically untenable and the world headed for organic farming, green farming, etc. It meant that achieving physical and economic reach to food was not the only challenge India was facing, but such aims should not be realized at the cost of the precious ecology and biodiversity, a new challenge. India needed a new kind of green revolution which could deliver it the physical, economic as well as ecological access to food, the second green revolution, an all-in-one approach towards the agriculture sector. Hollow right-pointing triangle land reforms. The official stance and emphasis on land reforms in India have been changing over the time in wake of the emerging issues, which may be seen in the following two phases. 12. 13 Phase 1. This phase commences just after independence. All economies were agrarian before they were industrialized, only their periods vary. Once democratic systems developed, the first thing the developed countries of today did was to complete the agrarian reforms in a time-bound way. As land remains the means of livelihood for the larger section of society in an agrarian economy, the successful completion of agrarian reforms benefited the maximum number of people, thereby improving their economic conditions. At the time of independence, India was a typical agrarian economy and had inherited a very inequitable agrarian system. Land reforms will be a major plank of independent India, and as part of the agrarian reforms it was made clear by the pledge of the Indian National Congress in 1935 itself. Land reforms in India had three objectives similar to the other economies which opted for it in the past. Removing institutional discrepancies of the agrarian structure inherited from the past which obstructed increasing agricultural production, such as the size of agricultural holding, land ownership, land inheritance, tenancy reforms, abolition of intermediaries, introduction of modern institutional factors to agriculture, etc. The other objective of the land reforms in India was related to the issue of socio-economic inequality in the country. The high inequality in land ownership not only had its negative economic impact on the economy, but it was badly intertwined with the caste system in India and the allocation of social prestige and status by the society at large. More than 80% of the population from its livelihood inherited the agrarian system which had inequitable ownership of the asset, i.e., land to earn income. The government wanted to go for a restructuring of land ownership in the economy on logical grounds and with public welfare approach. This objective of land reforms got enough socio-political attention as it tried to dismantle the age-old agrarian structure in the country. It became such a hot issue that land reforms in India got a bad name, synonymous to land grabbing by the government and allotting them to the landless masses. The third objective of land reforms in India was highly contemporary in nature, which did not get enough socio-political attention. It was the objective of increasing agricultural production for solving the interrelated problems of poverty, malnutrition and food insecurity. To realize the objectives of land reforms, the government took three main steps which had many internal sub-steps. 1. Abolition of intermediaries. Under this step, the age-old exploitative land tenure systems of the Zamindari, Mahalwari and Rayatwari were fully abolished. 2. Tenancy reforms. Under this broader step, three interrelated reforms protecting the land tenants were affected. Regulation of rent so that a fixed and rational rate of rent could be paid by the sharecroppers to the landowners. Security of tenure so that a sharecropper could feel secure about his future income and his economic security. And 14. Ownership rights to tenants so that the landless masses, i.e., the tenants, the sharecroppers, could get the final rights for the land they plow, land to the tillers. 3. Reorganization of agriculture. This step again has many interrelated and highly logical provisions in the direction of rational agrarian reforms. Redistribution of land among the landless poor masses. After promulgating timely silling laws, the move failed badly with few exceptions, such as West Bengal, Kerala and partially in Andhra Pradesh. Consolidation of land could only succeed in the regions of the Green Revolution, i.e., Haryana, Punjab and western Uttar Pradesh, and remained marred with many loopholes and corruption. Cooperative farming, which has a high socio-economic moral base, was only used by the big farmers to save their lands from the draconian selling laws. The whole attempt of land reforms in India is considered a big failure by majority of experts. Many consider the issue of land reforms in India as the most complex socio-economic problem of human history. Data regarding the numerical achievements of land reforms have been highly discouraging. Tenancy reforms provided tenants with rights, but only on 4% of the total operated areas in the country, 14.4 million hectares of operated area by 11 million tenants by 1992. Redistribution of ownership rights of land took place, but only up to 2% of the total operated area in the country, less than 2 million hectares among the 4.76 million people by 1992. Taken together, the whole process of land reforms could benefit only 6% of the operated area of the country with a negligible socio-economic positive impact. It was the failure of land reforms which made the government easily attracted towards the new policy of the Green Revolution in the coming times. Land reforms had failed to increase agricultural production, thus the government opted for the route of increasing productivity to reach the same goal, i.e., initiation of new techniques of agriculture. Reasons for failure of land reforms. Out of the many reasons forwarded by the experts responsible for the failure of the land reforms in India, the following three could be considered the most important ones. Land in India is considered a symbol of social prestige, status and identity, unlike the other economies which succeeded in their land reform programs, where it is seen as just an economic asset for income earning. Lack of political will which was required to effect land reforms and make it a successful program. Rampant corruption in public life, political hypocrisy and leadership failure in the Indian democratic system. Land reforms and Green Revolution. Once the government launched the Green Revolution, the issue of land reforms almost got 16 marginalized due to the following reasons. There is an inherent diabolic relationship between the Green Revolution and the land reforms, as the former suits bigger and economic land holdings, while the latter intended to fragment the land among a large number of the masses. The land reforms were socially opposed by the land-owning caste lobbies, while there was no such opposition to the Green Revolution. The level of legislative attempts taken by the governments regarding the land reforms till date had almost no positive socio-economic impact on the country, while the Green Revolution was having all potential of proving higher yields of food grains. The subsidized supplies of food grains under PL 480 were hampering India from carving out its independent diplomacy, as well as there has always remained a doubt about the regular supplies of wheat. International pressure as well as the suggestions from the World Bank besides the success stories of the Green Revolution from the countries where it had increased the yield of wheat. Phase 2. The second phase of land reforms can be traced in the process of economic reforms. Economic reforms exposed the economy to the new and emerging realities, such as land acquisition and leasing, food-related issues and the agricultural provisions of the World Trade Organization, WTO. We see a shift, Economic Survey 2012-13, in the thinking of the Government of India towards the issue of land reforms. A clear three-step policy looks emerging. Mapping land carefully and assigning conclusive title. Devising a fair but speedy process of land acquisition. And putting in place a transparent and effective land leasing policy. Land is probably the single most valuable asset in the country today. Not only could greater liquidity for land allow more resources to be redeployed efficiently in agriculture, it could ease the way for land utilizing businesses to set up. Perhaps, as important, it could allow land to serve as collateral for credit. The issue of inconclusive land ownership has been a major developmental concern and matter of high litigation in the country. Presently, a scheme, the Digital India Land Records Modernization Program, DILRMP, is being run as a central sector scheme aimed at moving from presumptive title, where registration of a title does not imply the owner's title is legally valid, to conclusive title, where it does. Successful completion of the program is supposed to speed up the process of development in the country together with saving the precious time in land-related litigation. However, the program has been slow and uneven across states. To speed up the process, lessons may be taken from some state initiatives such as the Bhumi project in Karnataka, the Rajasthan Urban Sealing Act 2016 and the use of blockchain technology to prevent property fraud in Andhra Pradesh. Moving onwards, the Government of India passed the Land Acquisition Bill, 2013. The bill, besides proposing to amend the Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act, 2011 proposed to put in place a transparent, effective and speedy laws regarding the need of land reforms related to leasing and acquisition. By 2015, the new government at the center proposed 17. 18. A new land bill, Right to Fair Compensation and Transparency in Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Bill, 2015, which aimed at removing the inadequacies of the Land Act of 2013. Faced with extreme opposition by the political parties, experts and media, the bill, which was already enforced through presidential ordinance, was repealed by the government. Later on, the Niti Aayog was asked to look into advising an effective, fair and transparent land acquisition policy for the country. Niti Aayog suggested a model land leasing law in 2016. Finer points, as per the relevant official documents, related to this phase may be summed up in the following way. Leasing seems a better choice in face of farmers' opposition seen in recent times in different states toward attempts at land acquisition. Again, if the country needs to attract investment from the organized private sector, domestic or foreign, land leasing seems a better option than land acquisition. Corporate farming has not taken place in the country in a big scale, especially in the areas of food grains production, which India needs to ensure food security and compete in the global grain market, in particular, and the agri-market in general. This has become even more important in the wake of the right to food given to a large segment of the population. Giving primacy to leasing will solve several problems. It will keep land ownership in the hands of the existing farmers. B. It will prevent mass landlessness and unemployment among the farmers. C. Farmers will get a permanent source of income. In the meantime, they might be imparted skills and provide better employment in industries. And D. It will make land easily available for use of public and private purposes. Meanwhile, the model land leasing law advised by the Niti Aayog in 2016 has been well received by the states, and some of them tried land pooling quite successfully by early 2020. In this context, the example of Andhra Pradesh has been quite successful, which does not offer monetary compensation for the land taken today, rather offers a developed piece of land in the future city, 25% of every fertile acre pooled to be returned as developed area in future city. The proactive intermediation of state governments, the process of land acquisition looks coming out of the troubled times. But the new concern is the rising cost of land acquisition. Beginning with the financial year 2013-14, it has increased by over 300% till December 2019, from 0.8 crore rupees per hectare to 2.75 crore rupees per hectare, as per the platform Bhumi Rashi, Ministry of Road Transport and Highways. In the wake of the process of globalization, if the country intends to bring in benefits to agriculture sector, it needs to enhance its agriculture production to surplus levels, and for this India needs to garner in the investment potential of the private sector. This cannot happen till the country is able to bring out effective land leasing and acquisition policies. The recent emphasis on the promotion of the manufacturing sector and smart cities are hugely dependent on smoother and speedier process of land acquisition. Without expanding the industrial sector to its optimum levels, the agriculture sector can emerge a remunerative profession. The country needs to migrate the extra labor force of the 19 agriculture sector to industry smoothly. The issue of land acquisition is to establish a logical equation with environmental issue. In order to make the process of development sustainable, Niti Aayog gives the right call for it. It should be noted that while the Government of India has changed its orientation towards the issue of land reforms, the states in India are still trying to accelerate and continue the process of land reforms of Phase 1, but due to enough resistance from the land-owning section in the country, the process does not seem happening politically. Agriculture Holdings. The 10th Agriculture Census 2015-16 was released by the government in October 2018. The census is conducted after every 5 years. As per the report, the average size of land holding is decreasing due to rapid fragmentation caused by high population growth. The major highlights of the census are as given below. All comparisons made in reference to the last and the 9th census 2010-11. Filled square. The total area under farming fell from 159.6 million hectares, MHA, to 157.14 mega hectares. Filled square. Small and marginal farmers, owning less than 2 hectares, account for 86.2% of all farmers in India, but own just 47.3% of the crop area. In comparison, semi-medium and medium landholding farmers, owning between 2 to 10 hectares, account for 13.2% of all farmers, but own 43.6% of crop area. Phil Square. The proportion of small and marginal farmers grew from 84.9% to 86.2%, while the total number of operational holdings grew from 138 million to 146 million. Phil Square. The number of small and Phil Square. The small and marginal farmers, around 126 million in number, own about 74.4 mega hectares of land, or an average holding of just 0.6 hectares each, not enough to produce surpluses which can financially sustain their families, explaining the rising distress in Indian agriculture. Phil Square. For all farmers put together, the size of average land holding declined from 1.15 hectares to 1.08. Phil Square. The number of small and marginal farms rose by about 9 million during the period. Phil Square. The small and marginal farmers, around 126 million in number, own about 74.4 mega hectares of land, or an average holding of just 0.6 hectares each, not enough to produce surpluses which can financially sustain their families, explaining the rising distress in Indian agriculture. Phil Square. For all farmers put together, the size of average land holding declined from 1.15 hectares to 1.08 hectares. Phil Square. The farmers holding 10 hectares and more account for just 0.57% and had a share of 9.04% in the operated area. Phil Square. State-wise data from the survey showed that Uttar Pradesh accounted for the largest number of operational holdings of farmers at 23.8 million, followed by Bihar, 16.4 million, and Maharashtra, 14.7 million. Phil Square. Among operated or farmed areas, Rajasthan topped the list with 20.9 mega hectares, followed by Maharashtra, 19.9 mega hectares, and Uttar Pradesh, 17.45 mega hectares. Phil Square. The proportion of farms that are operated by women rose from 12.8% to 13.9%, signifying that more women are managing farm operations. The process of feminization of farm sector is going on. Hollow right pointing triangle green revolution.